Thank you. I'm calling to order the regular session of the County Commission meeting. Today is Monday, March 25th. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lundy. Here. Commissioner Durrett.
Here.
Commissioner Oster. Here. Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Here.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Beeler.
Here.
Commissioner Daly.
Here.
Commissioner Jay.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Present.
We have all members present. Would you also call our junior commissioners, please?
Junior Commissioner Hall. Junior Commissioner Mendoza Uceda.
Here.
Junior Commissioner Hancock. Junior Commissioner Bolt. Junior Commissioner Hira. Here. Junior Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Junior Commissioner Hendrickson.
She is on her way.
Okay. Junior Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Junior Commissioner Venable.
Here.
Junior Commissioner Cho.
Here.
Junior Commissioner Cox.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. To my left are two representatives from the clerk's office, and to my far right and over is Mike Moyers representing our law department. Are there any elected officials in the audience?
Charlie Susano.
Oh, Mr. Susano, thank you so much for being here. We always welcome you. Thank you. Thank you. I see Mr. Davis sitting down there with the Election Commission. Thank you for being here, sir. I believe that's all I see at the moment. Thank you. Moving on, we'll have our devotion by Mr. Richie Beeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This past weekend was the Feast of Purim for the Hebrews, and it commemorates the story of Esther from the Old Testament. And in the story of Esther, which many of you may be familiar with, but in case you aren't, Esther was a poor young Jewish girl who was living in exile in the kingdom of Persia. Her parents had passed away. She was being raised by her cousin. And through a series of very unlikely but divinely ordered events, Esther became the queen of the entire empire. And during that time, one of the king's officials who had a vendetta against the Jews got the king to issue an edict to essentially exterminate all the Jews in the kingdom of Persia. And Esther's cousin got wind of the plot and asked her to go and appeal to the king on behalf of her people. It was a huge risk because in that culture, unless the king had called for you, even though you were the queen, to go into his presence without being summoned was at the risk of her own life. And she was obviously greatly troubled by this dilemma. And her cousin Mordecai said the words to her that have kind of become the most famous words of that story. He said, if you don't go and stand in the gap on behalf of your people, the Lord will raise up deliverance from some other place. But who knows but that you have come into the kingdom for just such a time as this. And I look to my colleagues to say to you, and not only those who are serving now, but to those of you who will remain after some of us have gone in a few months, that you have been put in these seats for just such a time as this. And there will be many challenges, some we're facing now and some that we'll face in the future. And there'll be some uncertain waters because some of you don't know who you'll be serving with in a few months. But just know that you're where you are because the divine hand of God has put you there. And he is with you. And you only need but to call upon him for guidance and wisdom. And I pray that we'll all do that. Join me in a word of prayer. And Father, I do thank you for all these people that you have divinely chosen for these positions and the places you've put them in life and in service to this county. I thank you for these junior commissioners that are here because they care and they want to learn and they want to be involved. And Lord, I just pray as you mark out paths for each of them that they will look to you as the supreme one who governs all things. And so we thank you for that. We thank you that you're sovereign and you're also good. And we trust in your goodness as you guide us each day. We ask you to do that for this meeting, and I pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Beeler. I'll now turn the floor over to Commissioner Ward for our pledge.
Could everybody please stand, face the flag at the front of the room, and remove your cover? I pledge allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to amendments to the agenda. Already noted on our agenda, we have added items 16, 27, and 28. Also, I believe all noted on the agenda, we are deferring to April. Item 36, 41, 57, 58, and deferred till May is item 59. Item withdrawal, for withdrawal is item 40. On non-consent, we have items 28, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35, 37, 38, 39, and 42. And then one order of, that I will also mention again during zoning, item 55 in zoning will be heard first, and then we will go back to our regular order. Item 55 will be heard first. Are there any other changes that need to be made to the agenda? Seeing none, if I could have a motion, please, to approve the amendments.
Second.
We have a motion by Daly, second by Frazier. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion, please, to approve the educational and government consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Durrett, second by Beeler. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk.
Item number 28, Resolution R-24-3-101, honoring the members of the class of 2024 Junior Commission Civics Education Program upon their completion of the program.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor by Jay, second by Schoonmaker. Do we have any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I apologize. Opposed? No, I hear none. Motion carries. Did you have a comment, Commissioner Jay? Oh, I thought his hand was on. All right. Junior Commissioners, it's been a real treat having you. We hope that you have gotten as much out of this program as we have. This is a resolution, and every one of you will be given a copy. After I read this resolution, if everyone would please come forward for a joint picture, and then I'll present the resolutions. Whereas the Knox County Commission established a junior commission program in November 2022 to promote community engagement and civic education within Knox County students. And whereas this unique leadership program entirely involved Knox County youth in its understanding local government and has ultimately led to a more engaged and informed citizenry. And whereas this annual youth civics program was provided to the public and open to junior and senior students enrolled in full-time public, private, or accredited homeschool programs. And whereas participating in this youth leadership program provided experiential learning of the functioning of government, demonstrated healthy citizenry, habits and promoted public awareness of the strength and abilities of Knox County youth. And whereas the students who participated in Junior Commission civic leadership have become more engaged citizens who will no doubt emerge as community leaders, promoting liberty, democracy, and the virtues of a healthy republic. And whereas it has been verified that the class of 2024 participants have completed all the requirements of the program and are hereby recognized as Junior Commission graduates. Therefore, let it be resolved by this Commission of Knox County. It is hereby recognized. And as I say your names, if you would please stand up. From Career Magnet Academy, Miss Hall. Another senior from Career Magnet Academy, Mr. Mendoza Usada. A junior from Bearden High School, Miss Gracie Hancock. A senior from Webb, Mr. Bayless Bolt. A senior at Bearden High School, Maya Hura. A senior at L&N STEM Academy, Josh Martinez. A senior at Apostolic Christian School, Kaylin Hendrickson. A junior at Gibbs High School, Landra Bailey. A junior at South Doyle High School, Albert Venable. A junior at Farragut High School, Timothy Chow. A junior at Central High School, McKinley Cox. You all have graduated now from the second annual Junior Commission program and are now charged with promoting civic engagement and sharing the importance of local government amongst your peers. Please come forward. Thank you. Next agenda item.
Item number 29, presentation of a proclamation by the Knox County Mayor proclaiming April 2024 as Fair Housing Month in Knox County.
Thank you. If you'd identify yourself, please, and county of residence. You don't look like Mayor Jacobs.
Jenny Holden, 400 West Main Street. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start by thanking Mayor Jacobs for allowing me to present the proclamation tonight alongside the members that are making their way up of the Grants and Community Development Team. In addition to April being National Fair Housing Month, it is also the month when we celebrate National Community Development Week. And since that's coming up next week, I just wanted to take a minute to brag on this dedicated, good-looking group behind me of folks who work really hard every day here for Knox County. In the past year, their work has touched the lives of thousands of families here in Knox County. They've worked on projects focused on increasing access to childcare, the prevention of evictions, rehabbing homes for low-income seniors, providing health care services for the working uninsured, improving public safety services, and increasing the availability of rental housing. I feel extremely fortunate to have the privilege to work with these folks every day, and I just wanted to take this opportunity before I read the proclamation to publicly thank them for all the positive impacts they're making here in our community. And with that, the proclamation. A proclamation on behalf of the people of Knox County by His Honor, the Mayor Glenn Jacobs, to publicly recognize Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Congress of the United States passed the Fair Housing Act, Title VIII, Civil Rights Act of 1968, affirming the right to equal housing opportunity for all individuals. And whereas the Fair Housing Act was established to rectify housing inequities and eradicate racial segregation in American neighborhoods, ensuring the universal right to discrimination-free housing. And whereas quality housing is not only about having shelter, but serves as the foundation for improved educational, employment, and health outcomes, and stands as a crucial avenue for families to build and pass down intergenerational wealth. And whereas April is nationally recognized as Fair Housing Month, bringing together governments, housing stakeholders, and all advocates for the good quality of our citizens. And whereas Knox County is dedicated to fostering fairness and equal opportunity in housing, recognizing its pivotal role in promoting positive social, cultural, and economic growth. And now, therefore, I, Glenn Jacobs, Knox County Mayor, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Fair Housing Month in Knox County and urge all citizens to join me in this observance.
Thank you. Thank you all for what you do.
Director Holden, could we get a picture?
I would love that. Thank you, Commissioner.
How's it going up there?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is public forum. And these are items that are directly related to our agenda items. We have two speakers signed up. Since each speaker is speaking on two resolutions, I will allow each speaker 5 minutes each. First one is Aaron Gill. You'd say your name and county of residence. Is your mic turned on?
There we go. Okay.
Very good.
Thanks for the assist. It is read now. It was not read before. So good evening, Commission. My name is Erin Gill, and I'm VP of Government Government Relations and Sustainability at KUB. It's good to be here with you again. I thought I would state my remarks during public forum. Obviously, I'm happy to come back with questions as you all discuss items 35 and 42, which are the two related to utility poles. I appreciate the time that you've each, and particularly Commissioner Jay, have taken to consider these items and learn about our processes. As you heard last time, KUB provides power to over 215,000 customers across a 688 square mile service area that actually extends beyond just Knox County into 6 other counties as well. Our electric system provides service across over 5,400 miles of service lines that are connected to more than 180,000 poles throughout our territory. KUB owns more than 120,000 of those poles, and we have agreements with telecommunication providers to allow other companies' assets to be attached to those poles. And in turn, we have infrastructure attached to approximately 60,000 poles that are owned by other entities. So in total, we share infrastructure with a total of 7 different utility partners. And that is important for several reasons. Utilizing a single pole for multiple parties' attachments significantly reduces the number of poles that are placed throughout our right-of-way, which of course not only saves costs for our ratepayers, but also reduces significantly the amount of clutter that we could otherwise imagine. But with so many assets and partners, maintaining our infrastructure is no small feat. And I'll emphasize that processes that are reliable, predictable, and efficient are really critical for our work to keep the lights on and keep our rates as low as we can for our customers. We work proactively to replace our aging poles, as well as reactively to replace poles that are damaged by vehicle accidents, acts of nature, or other causes. And on average, we replace between 1,400 and 1,800 poles annually. And in some years, we have replaced as many as 3,000 poles. You heard about this in your work session, but we, along with our partners, utilize a system called Engines. That's the National Joint Use Notification System to coordinate with the other attachers to alert them to each replacement that we make so that they can transfer their assets to the new pole, and we would come back then to remove the old pole. As you also heard, working down that list, one company after the next can take some time, and we hear and echo your frustration that oftentimes that timeline is one, longer than it should be, but very frustratingly long for those who might have a double pole in their yard. We support item 35, which is Commissioner Jay's resolution for us to work more closely and more intentionally together alongside Knox County as an arbitrator who can ensure that we are keeping to our timelines and working proactively and collaboratively to not only reduce the backlog of poles that are out there now, but establish systems that can avoid that backlog in the future. We welcome the quarterly meetings that are called for. We're committed to participating, and we think they'll be really important to keeping all partners accountable. We can also attest that progress is possible with intention. We intend. 2001, at KUB, we recognized that we did have that growing backlog of duplicate poles, and in recent years, we've reduced that by over 40%. So it is possible, and we will continue to work very proactively to continue that steady progress. With regard to item 42, which is the ordinance, I want to underscore that public safety is top of mind for us at KUB, and we respond within hours, not days, to eliminate immediate safety concerns. We follow industry best practice to ensure that when we leave a scene, that we are not leaving poles or wires in a dangerous condition. We take that very seriously. We do have, as I've expressed to Commissioner Jay, some concerns related to the ambiguity related to how the ordinance would be enforced long-term. And that is important because it is a not-for-profit utility. KUB has to work on the front end and on the back end to ensure that financial impacts to our customers are avoided whenever possible. And given the size of our system, again, 120,000 poles, over 5,000 miles of electric line, even small risks or inefficiencies can add up quickly for our ratepayers. So again, we are very committed to working collaboratively with Knox County and our partners, and happy to express support for the resolution this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your willingness to stay if there's further questions. Next speaker signed up is Shannon Littleton. Your name and county of residence, please.
Good afternoon. Shannon Littleton. I'm probably one of the few in the room that's from Loudoun County, not from Knox County. But the good news is the company that I'm the general manager of, LCUB, 3/4 of our customers are in West Knoxville. So we take this very seriously. Erin made, as she always does, some very good points. And when it comes to the numbers, you can divide it by 5. That's who we are compared to KUB in Knoxville. But to give you a little idea, we're around 30,000 poles in West Knoxville. We test 10% of our poles every year for pole integrity. We take that job very seriously, and we're very concerned about safety, as I know you all are as well, and I'm sure that's why we're here tonight. I don't want to be redundant. Erin, of course, stated her case very well in the position of KUB. I don't want to repeat exactly word for word what she said, but we very well could. But let me outline a few things here. I just want to make sure that everyone received Chairman Aiken's letter from the LCUB board on January 18th that laid out our position on tonight's ordinance. I will call to your attention that Jeremy Walden, our director of the electrical department, attended every single meeting and put his input into the decision process that you all will go through tonight. Many of the cases that he set forth did not make it to the ordinance. So, and I'll address that just briefly in a second. But on a positive note, I do want to say that Jim Snowden and his office, we have nothing but an outstanding relationship with that office. As do many of us at LCUB. I look around the room, I don't know all of you, but many of you have my cell phone number, and we've worked on projects from bad poles included from time to time, and we welcome that input. So on tonight's item, number 35, the resolution, I'm in agreement with Erin. We have no comment in a negative fashion to say against that. I think we are looking forward to working with our partners and seeing less double poles in these right-of-ways. Well, we agree with that. I think that's very prudent. On item 42, I would ask that the ordinance does not pass tonight. We believe it is ambiguous in many regards. I think that we are very safety conscious. We, as I said earlier, we do 10% of our pole change out or testing and change out every year. And one thing that's very concerning, no expertise, and of course this is not in any negative comment to the engineering department, but the folks in-house that are utilities, they're experts in this area, and the folks that we hire are experts. What looks like a bad pole is not necessarily a bad pole. Just because it's ugly doesn't mean it doesn't have structural integrity and does its job. I would ask that 42 does not pass tonight and give us a chance to demonstrate that we can achieve what the County Commission is looking for us to do. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
Do I have
Motion to
a
approve. Second.
motion by Daly, second by Frazier to approve minutes of previous meeting? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 30 is consideration of the acceptance of new county roads. A, Whisper Trace Lane, located in Whispering Woods Subdivision Phase 1, District 4. B, Edenfield Drive, located in Grove Point, Unit 2, District 7. C, Saddlebrook Drive. D, Parish Hill Lane. These are both located in Village at Saddlebrook, Unit 1, District 7. E, Saddlebrook Drive. F, Windmead Lane, located in Village at Saddlebrook, Phase 2, District 7. G, Saddlebrook Drive, located in Village at Saddlebrook, Phase 4, District 7. H, Saddlebrook Drive, located in Village at Saddlebrook, Phase 5, District 7. I, River Poppy Road. J, Cornflower Lane. K, Trout Lily Lane. These are all located in River Meadows, Unit 2, District 8.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ward, second by Beeler to approve. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 31, consideration of the closure of unbuilt right-of-way at Harvest View Lane and a portion of Shadow Branch Lane in Commission District 8. And this is on first reading.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on this item?
Yes, motion to approve.
Motion by Beeler, second by Ward for approval. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 32, line item transfers, total amount of $564,920.52.
Thank you. Is there a
Motion to
motion?
approve.
Second.
Motion by Jay, second by Schoonmaker. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 33, budget amendments, total amount of $13,718,977.08.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jay, second by Schoonmaker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is notary applications. There were 177 received.
Motion to approve notary applications. Second.
Motion by Durrett, second by Lee to approve notary applications. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 34, spread of record, travel for the National Association of Counties, NACO, 2024 Legislative Conference, and the Tennessee County Commissioners Association, TCCA, Governmental Affairs Committee meeting, and the Tennessee County Services Association, TCSA, 2024 County Government Day Conference.
Thank you. Next item.
Item number 35, Resolution R-24-3-405, to promote the safety and well-being of the public by establishing a procedure by which to encourage all utility pole owners and utility service providers within Knox County to expeditiously eliminate all duplicate or redundant utility poles within any Knox County road or right-of-way.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor for approval by Jay, second by Ward. Is there any discussion on this item? Commissioner Jay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Drusilla, if you could put the photo up that I provided. Thank you. I won't reiterate everything I gave in the presentation last week. I just wanted to kind of recap the steps and how we got to today on this resolution specifically. As I've said before, I became aware of this issue in 2020 when a constituent in the Cardinals community, Dr. Don Wegener, had a pole that was damaged from a car accident outside of his home and contacted me, had tried to get it removed, but was unable to get any attention on it. The pole was clearly broken and shredded and hanging over the road. There were many telecom lines attached to it, and we were able to, working through the engineering department and some of the partners that were here today to get that removed, and that sort of just caught my attention. And then as I began to see them, and I, as an at-large commissioner, I drive everywhere around the county and north, south, east, and west. Really, once you see them, you can't unsee them, and really just continued to see more and more poles. And I think it was the one, there was one this summer that was looked fairly dangerous in Washington Pike area, and that sort of prompted me to say, okay, is there a time to address this? And I reached out to Mr. Snowden, sort of sat down and said, how can we begin to address the issue at hand? We set up a exploratory meeting and a discussion meeting with the telecom partners, with the utility partners. That was back in August of 2023. I've posted on the public forum the 4 meetings we've had, including who's attended those meetings. You can look at that yourself. And then we met together as a group. We met 4 times and really started with a much broader ordinance and a much bigger
more defined set of, polls and penalties and things like that, and as a starting point, and did listen to the partners that we have in the utility and telecom industry, and continue to sort of refine that and take a lot of their suggestions. It did start with a much stricter ordinance with its timelines, but really all parties said it was an issue they understood, but it was unreasonable to kind of put a definitive timeline on it, and they wanted to be good partners. We've heard that time and again. They've said, we want to be good partners. We want to begin addressing it with you. So really broke that into two parts, the resolution, which is before you, and then we'll talk about the other one later. And so this is really an opportunity to take them at their word and to have an ordinance before you that says, we want everybody to come to the table. We want to meet quarterly. We want to identify, unfortunately, the last comprehensive transportation plan we have is from 10 years ago or more. So that's the one that's referenced. But to essentially look down and look at the traffic patterns, look at our major corridors, the most heavily trafficked areas, work on those areas first and continue to sort of remediate and find a way to work through the issues. There are lots of partners at the table, but it's, we have to start somewhere and let's go over there, go start from there. So really the resolution in its totality is an opportunity for us to identify the problem, to agree on what the long-term solution might be, to take our partners at their word and bring them to the table to see where things go, to identify major corridors to begin with and start addressing them, meet quarterly, and then come back to this commission next spring and see how it's going, and either renew the agreement and the resolution to say the partnership's going well and let's keep working, or if everybody ignores it and doesn't want to do any work on it, perhaps we'll come back and do something completely different, or if maybe it's all cleaned up in a year and we don't have to even renew the resolution, whatever the case might be. But I think it's a good starting point, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on the resolution presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jay. Any other discussion? Commissioner Durrett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Due to my employment with one of the utility providers in the area, I must recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you. That's noted. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 37, Resolution R-24-3-502, approving 4 agreements in response to the state and local fiscal recovery funds, SLFRF, for various activities that mitigate the negative health and economic impacts of COVID-19. YWCA, $250,000. Centro Hispano de East Tennessee, $100,000. Seed, Inc., $150,000. And Karnes Fire Department, $420,000. Federally funded through Treasury SLFRF program.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this?
Motion
Item.
to approve?
Motion by Durrett, second by Lee, for approval of this resolution. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 38, Resolution R-24-3-801, regarding the issuance of not to exceed $99,500,000 general obligation bonds of Knox County, Tennessee.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jay, second by Schoonmaker to approve. And this does require a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lundy, Commissioner Durrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Oster, Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Commissioner Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Beeler,
Aye.
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you. And I apologize. Did you did you push your mic, Commissioner Daly, to speak? I'm so sorry. I didn't catch that.
That's all right. I just wonder if we needed a roll call on the previous one.
There's none noted.
Okay.
Next item, please.
Item number 39, Resolution R-24-3-802, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of Knox County, Tennessee in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $99,500,000 in one or more series, making provision for the issuance, sale, and payment of sale bonds, establishing the term thereof and the disposition of proceedings therefrom, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jay, second by Schoonmaker to approve this resolution. And a vote, is there any discussion? Seeing no response, roll call is required.
Commissioner Durrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Oster? Aye. Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Commissioner Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Beeler?
Aye.
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jay?
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier?
Aye.
Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Next item.
Item number 42, ordinance O-24-3-101, amending the Knox County Code, Chapter 66, Utilities, by adding a new section 66-2 to provide for the removal of inactive, broken, or replaced utility poles. Knox County Code, Chapter 66, Article 1, establishing section 66-2, previously reserved, and this is on first reading.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for approval by Commissioner Jay, second by Commissioner Ward. Is there any discussion on this item? Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a first reading. It'll come in next month, but I would like for LUCB, KUB, any of the other utilities to look at this ordinance and send us a copy of what you would like to see or not see between now and then, if you would. Could you do that? So this is just a first reading, so we'll get to work on it and see what you all come up with. Mr. Law Director, the letter from LUCB stated that it might not be legal, that we may be overstepping our bounds. Could you explain?
Mr. Sturkey has looked at this in the context of federal law, federal case law that has examined this. Generally speaking, what we find is that counties are still allowed under federal law to maintain their rights of way and roads for public safety purposes. We believe that this is a valid expression of that power that is reserved to the counties. I got the letter, or maybe I got a letter from a gentleman at TDS, an email, and he said something about federal regulations. He didn't cite any particular federal regulations. If you've never seen the Code of Federal Regulations, I invite you to take a look at it. It's over the Lawson McGee Library. It's on a shelf about as long as that table. We're happy to look at any regulations anybody wishes to cite to our attention. But for the purposes of tonight's discussion, we believe that this ordinance is well within our authority to adopt.
Thank you. Commissioner Jay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a visual to go with my comments for tonight that's up on the screen. I would like to just take a minute to look at the ordinance as presented. Again, from the meetings that we had, the 4 different meetings, it became clear that there were kind of 2 issues. One was, let's work on the much bigger problem of resolving the issue at a whole. But the second part really came from eminent, public safety. And I really feel like as a commissioner, as an elected official, there should be no greater priority than public safety that we hold on a day-to-day basis. And we talk about this all the time throughout the county, that is our first priority. And it really came down to what happens if there is a eminent safety issue and people do not respond. Now, some of our partners are good partners. They do respond and they do come out and put the power back on real quick. But we're also not just talking about the power, we're also talking about the pole and the additional telecom lines that are on that pole. And as you saw in my presentation last week, and it's on the digital agenda, I cited 8 out of the 9 commission districts with very specific pictures that are showing what I would consider to be things that look quite dangerous and may have some structural integrity, but until when? Until the next storm or next issue or next person that gets that hits a pole or hits another issue. There's interestingly enough, there's only most of one district that doesn't have this issue, and that's District 5. And because District 5 is almost primarily Farragut. And so I talked to the mayor of Farragut, I talked to the chief administrator of Farragut, and I talked to him about, why do you not have double poles everywhere? And they stated very simply, because when utility or telecom companies wish to come and put new poles in, they must go through a permit process that goes to their planning commission. And they have a provision in that says, we grant you permission to put these new poles in if you remove the other pole. And they do. Magically enough, they comply with this. Our current partner, the gentleman that is here from LCUB, works almost exclusively in the Farragut area. I don't think there's another, there may be some KUB overlap, but they don't have double poles because they say we're not going to issue a new permit unless you take care of the other permit and the stuff that they put in as perdition. Kind of like our conditional zoning. We'll give you the zoning as long as you do the right thing, and we're going to check up on you. So going back to just the eminent public safety, if you look at the guts of this ordinance, it's actually very, very simple. If a pole is damaged in some way, shape, or form, and our team at Engineering Public Works, and Mr. Snowden, I am going to ask you a few questions if you could make your way this way. Our team at Engineering and Public Works, who manages the right-of-way, who enforces the codes, who enforces the safety of our county in so many different ways, if they see something that is an imminent public safety threat, then they simply, per this ordinance, contact the pole owner. And that could be somebody who has 1 line or 2 line or any number of attachers to it and says, we think this is a safety issue. And we want to we need to start the clock. And they basically say, we need you to take care of this. And they give 7 days, a full week to remediate and make that safe. Now that doesn't always mean removing the pole. Sometimes that means bolting it to another pole or finding another way for it to be safe. But it gives you a week. And this is, again, not having to do with storms, natural disasters, anything that's kind of out of the norm. This is just normal everyday life. And then the ordinance says, if for some reason there's an issue with that, we'll give you another 7 days, 2 weeks for something that could be a threat to the public safety. And then the ordinance goes on to say, if there's some other instance in which you need more time, we can grant you more time. If there's some complete circumstance, maybe the hardware for moving the line is back ordered 30 days, whatever. We'll give you even more time. And it takes out natural disasters, weather events, et cetera, and it takes out all new construction and new capital projects. That's all it says. It says, if we think something is going to hurt someone, we want you to take care of it now and not just wait. And then only if those pole owners completely ignore us, maybe they just say, forget it, we don't want to do anything, then we would have an opportunity to go to a jurisdiction, to go to a judge and order injunction that would say, please tell the judge, please tell them to remove this pole or to make it safe. And if that doesn't work and they don't, ignore anything, then we can say, we don't want to issue you new permits. We have the right to say you don't get a new permit for more lines until you take care of the thing that's unsafe, just like Farragut does all the time. That's all the ordinance says. Make it safe. Keep people from getting hurt. And this is an example. If you look at this on your screen, you can drive out to District 6 on your way back today and look at this. And while this pole has not fallen yet, and per Mr. Littleton's comments, it may have some integrity left, does this look safe to you? This has been this way for years. Now, it might have held up for years, but wait until the next storm and the next storm. This is a pole that is clearly, this is the same pole. It's beginning to lean more. It has a broken base right next to the new pole. There is literally one telecom line left on the old pole. Somebody just hasn't moved yet. And you can see how shredded it is. And I talked to the homeowner here at 2517, and I asked her, how long has it been like this? And she said, years. So, yeah, it may have some integrity, but for how long? This would be a great example of, if it continues to lean, then our right-of-way team might say, hey, time to take care of this. This also kind of came up in a public safety way because of a very particular issue that, Mr. Snowden, I'll ask you to come up, that I showed in my presentation last week. It was, again, it's on the digital agenda, but it was that last example. And Mr. Snowden, I'd like for you to talk about that example, and then I have two other questions. If you'll remember, it was the pole under tension.
Oh, yeah, the one on, I believe it's Harvey Road?
Yes.
Yeah, we did have a pole on Harvey that where the line turned. So to Commissioner Jay's point, there was quite a bit of tension on the pole that we received a request from a citizen that lived in a subdivision that it was adjacent to it, and he was concerned that the pole could be an unsafe issue. So we looked at it. We felt like it did show signs of obvious strain. So we did notify the utility provider, and they advised us that they didn't feel like that it was a concern of theirs at that one time. And then I think the constituent called me back, I don't know, about a week later, and said that he had been without power all weekend because the pole that we had identified had snapped due to the tension it was under. So there was that one example that we've had that a constituent did call our office that did result in a power outage as well as the pole breaking into the roadway.
Thank you. And I'm glad no one was hurt in that circumstance, but a perfect example of how you all, as the manager of the right-of-way, while these are rare occasions, they do happen, and you have the expertise and the skill to be able to say, we feel like this is something that is a public service. Is that correct? Or a public safety issue?
Sure. And obviously, my expertise and a lot of my staff's expertise is not pole integrity. So we're looking at it from one lens, and certainly the folks that maintain those poles have a different perspective and may even have more expertise at it. So, but in this particular case, we did feel like the pole was under a lot of strain and made that call to the utility provider.
Is this example I'm showing something that if you saw this pole continue to lean over into the road, that would be something that this ordinance would be an example of?
For sure. I mean, one of the things we would want to look at is, and it's kind of hard to tell how far off the road that pole is based on that picture, but if right now, if you were in a panel van or something like that, that would be my concern. Obviously, a smaller vehicle is not going to have an issue here, but something that is a panel van that goes up vertically, that would be our concern here. That is that going to clip that larger vehicle? And at some point, it may get into the point to where we would feel that it could be unsafe.
And last question is, can you just reiterate the national crash data that you looked at, and also our wheel-over crashes in Knox County, and why this ordinance would help mitigate some of those?
Sure, yeah, and we look, roadway departure accidents are the most common accident that we see in Knox County because, as you all well know, our streets do not have really good shoulders on them in a lot of instances. We looked at that crash history, and I was trying to find, I didn't want to misspeak on this. Well, apologies. Got it here somewhere. Well. My fault. We did look at that, Commissioner Jay, and what we discovered was, I think I spoke last week that over 50% of the fatalities in America, and that we looked, it kind of correlates to our local area, 50% of every fatality in Knox County. And we averaged, unfortunately, about one fatality per month. So we get about 12 fatalities in a year on our roadways. About 50% of those are roadway departures where somebody's ran off the road and either hit an embankment or some other fixed object in the right of way, which obviously a utility pole is a fixed object in the right of way. So anytime we can eliminate those particular fixed objects are something that definitely would benefit the public safety.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Snowden. With your permission, Madam Chair, I have one other person I'd like to ask a question of,
Please.
if I could continue. Mr. Bagwell, could you join us and identify yourself?
Jeff Bagwell, 1749 Beauchamp Loop.
Thank you, Mr. Bagwell, for being here. You see more accidents than all of us combined every day, and you report them to us quite often as a representative of rural metro. You are on the scene. You've helped extract people from cars. You've seen the worst of the worst wrecks. And I wonder if you could tell this body what you see when it comes to wrecks that hit utility poles and what you see happen even sometimes while you're in the process of attending to that scene, and how most of our scenes are left when it's a major issue that might look like this.
Right. Well, we do respond to a lot of wrecks that are, we call them overcorrecting accidents where people go off the roadway and they do hit telephone poles. A lot of them are cracked. A lot of them are damaged. Most of the time, I can't think of really any occasion when the main provider, which is KUB, has not been prompt and has not come out and either set another pole or repaired the one that's there until they could get to it at a later date. But a lot of times they'll set the pole, they'll transfer the power lines, get power back up, and then the pole may sit there for months or a year before it can get repaired.
Do you often see poles that are still there that are the double poles get hit again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's happened too. I mean, and it does, as Mr. Snowden said, when they're in the right of way and we don't have much shoulder, that tends to happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bagwell. And sort of wrapping up my comments and getting to a part where I'd be happy to answer questions from fellow commissioners. One thing that struck me as I introduced this and it became more public is almost everything we do on commission, you'll get constituents that are for and against it. You'll get calls on both sides of the coin. I have not received a single call, text, email, phone call, stop in the grocery store, or any person, any citizen in Knox County that hasn't said that they're for making our roadways safer, reducing the amount of double poles, and addressing this issue. I challenge anybody to find me a constituent who loves double poles and loves more safety issues in our right of way. And I hear all the time from our colleagues, I vote with my constituents, so why would this be any different? This is pure public safety in a very reasonable way. Mr. Moyer said himself, and as Mr. Littleton said, most of the concerns from LCUB in the letter on January 18th were never put in the ordinance. We listened. We focused on a very finite amount of things to focus on, which is public safety. And since this ordinance has been presented in its final form, the only comment that we had was from our AT&T representative, Mr. Hill, and that provision was taken out. And it's in your red line version online. I've heard twice now that this is ambiguous, but nobody's provided me alternative language. And I'm open and willing to look at that. The only disagreement that we had was that the utility companies wanted to be their own police. They wanted to be the one who deemed something safe or unsafe. And I don't think that's appropriate. We are the public representatives. We manage the right of way. We rely on our engineering and codes team to determine what's safe, and they should be the ones who deem public safety. So I ask you as commissioners, I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm encouraging you to pass this on first reading. If there's additional language that needs to be considered, I'm sure we can do that between first and second reading, and I'm happy to answer it. But I think at the end of the day, This is pure public safety. And it's also the greater issue of, if a utility company wanted to upgrade the sewer lines, we would give them a permit. And if they did it, they would not leave all their old sewer lines in the right of way for people to hit. We would not tolerate that. Just because it's an up and down pole doesn't mean that it's any different and for public safety. So I welcome questions and comments, and I hope that you'll pass this on first reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schoonmaker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the resolution that we just passed a few minutes ago. I think that was a great first step. I heard from all the utility providers in my district that they supported the resolution, but they do not support the ordinance. I have exclusively LCUB as the electrical provider. We do not have any KUB power in the 5th Commission District. Over the last 9 years as a commissioner, LCUB has done just a phenomenal job as far as meeting the needs of the community. When power goes out, they don't just sit around, they're on top of it. And I've had very, very few issues where I've needed to contact LCUB, and when I have, they've been very, very proactive. The other times when it's not been an electrical issue, I've worked very well with our Knox County Engineering and Public Works Department utility supervisor. And as I've gone even in the 3rd district and the 4th district and seen something that didn't look right, once I contacted that individual, it was handled within 24 hours. So, and I think that person in that department does an outstanding job. You know, the picture that we saw here on Harvey Road with the pole leaning, when you have 30,000 poles in your system and a judgment error was made that it was still okay to keep up there, I'm sure LCUB would like to turn the clock back, but they can't. And if I understood correctly in talking with Mr. Littleton, who's the director of LCUB, that they started a testing program to test 10% of their poles every year to make sure that they're structurally sound. And it was, I guess, my assumption that that was based on this incident here, why this happened. But again, the other provider, TDS Telecom, who provides internet and cable to the district, they're against the ordinance. My feeling is I think that we need to give the resolution a chance to work, to give our utility providers the opportunity to show what they can do now that it's basically, on their radar screen. Previously, it wasn't. And until Commissioner Jay did this extensive project of bringing it to everybody's attention, I think now everybody's on guard and knows what's going on. In talking with LCUB, their service crews are now in the mindset of when they're running around the district that they see something out of whack, they're going to make sure their management knows what's going on. So I'm opposed to the ordinance at this time, and I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Oster?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to echo pretty much what Commissioner Schoonmaker said. I support the resolution because I like the idea of Knox County working with the utility companies, working with the telecom companies and that kind of stuff. I feel like if they don't do that, then we can always have the option of going the different route of adding an ordinance or something to that. Mr. Snowden, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
When we do find a dangerous pole, we don't have an ordinance right now. How long does it take, would you say, for LCUB or KUB to get out and take care of that?
Oh, oftentimes, a lot of these accidents, like Mr. Bagwell was saying, happen at night when we're not even there. And by the time we get back in the morning, typically LCUB or KUB has already rectified that problem. I mean, they do a really good job of getting in there and promptly replacing those poles. So that is an issue that we don't see, an issue with them being prompt in their attention to.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then Commissioner Jay, does this ordinance address double poles or it just addressing dangerous poles?
It only addresses dangerous poles. It's why I'm saying it's all a big related issue, but it's two different things. The resolution is only about, let's address the bigger issue with double poles. This is about dangerous poles. And I think this is a perfect example on your screen. So it just deals with, and if you look at the District 9 last week, the presentation I gave, where there's one or two intersections I noted with a lot of heavily leaning poles. This just deals with dangerous poles, period.
Okay.
And Mr. Stone's comment's correct, but they remediate the power line, not the other one. He's talking about the main line, just like this, that clearly they put up a new power line. It's just the dangerous poles. Another example of that could have been last week when I was on Washington Pike and we saw the one really leaning. They did come out, they moved the telecom, they cut the pole and they laid the pole down in the right of way like a giant spear. That would be a dangerous pole. If you ran off the road, it would come right through the front of your car. So that would be another issue. So it's about dangerous poles. And that's why if you really read the ordinance, it just says, when we see something that's really dangerous, we need everybody's prompt attention. And I would argue if they're such good partners and they do it anyway, why would they argue against the ordinance?
Okay. So I agree with Commissioner Schoonmaker. Majority of utility poles that are in my district's LCUB. I'm one of the commissioners that has Mr. Littleton's cell phone number and unfortunately spent a lot of time with him on the phone during the tornadoes, and they did a fabulous job. I drive my district twice a month. I think that I have gotten with him on 4 dangerous poles, and they have gotten out within 24 hours to take care of those. So, I'm fine with the ordinance. I obviously am about safety, but I think the resolution, is a good first step. But the ordinance is, I feel like, kind of not necessary at this point.
Commissioner Jay?
I just have a question for Commissioner Schoonmaker, based upon his comments, if you please. Mr. Schoonmaker, why did the utilities and telecoms tell you they didn't support the ordinance?
I think because they supported the resolution. They're like, let's get this going.
I know, I'm not talking about the resolution. Why did they tell you they were against a public safety ordinance?
Well, it's not actually, okay, you can use the term public safety ordinance, but I have to look at the people that are providing me services, and they've done a phenomenal job. I don't
disagree with that.
I cannot,
That's not the question.
offer what KUB does. Looking at District 9 here that you're talking about, that's probably KUB poles that are sitting there.
What?
But
That's not the
LCUB,
question, Commissioner Smith.
I guess my point is I don't want to penalize somebody who's doing an outstanding job.
Okay.
And they've taken good care of the people in my community, and I'm here to support them in that. And long conversations with the chairman of LCUB as well as the executive director of LCUB. They would like to see the resolution go forward, which we did, and then hold off on the ordinance.
I understand
if you want to do
position.
that a year from now or whatever.
I understand that position. The question is, why did they tell you they were against the ordinance? To remediate, to take care of things that are deemed dangerous to the public safety. That was your statement. They told me they were against the ordinance. I'm asking why.
Yes, absolutely. Did you see the one-page letter from TDS?
Yes,
Did you
I read that.
that?
The
Did that
TDS
make
who
sense
did
to
not
you?
attend any meeting.
I understand that, but did that make any sense to you?
Parts of it, but parts of it were very, legally jargoned that didn't make sense. But this is really a question for you and Commissioner Schoonmaker, or Commissioner Oster. If they're such good partners and they always help out and they do the right thing, why would they be scared of an ordinance that says, we are unsafe, we see something that's unsafe, come help us take care of it? If they're already doing it, why would it be an issue?
Well, I can't speak for them. That would be
Ms.
unfair.
Gill, Mr. Littleton, would either of you like to answer that question? If you're doing it anyway, and you're a great partner, why would you fear an ordinance that says, we see that something is unsafe, and we would like for you to address it in a timely manner so someone doesn't get hurt?
Sure. Thank you, commissioners. And I think my colleagues also would opine and maybe have different comments. So I'll stick with the ones that you and I have discussed. So the specific requests that we had responded to based on the draft ordinance related to the definition, and you and I have had some good dialogue around this, of the long-term ambiguity around who it is that determines the immediate safety hazard and whether it has been sufficiently remedied. So we have a great working relationship, as Mr. Snowden has alluded to, and we would echo the collaboration and wisdom that they bring to the table. So again, our concern is really forward-looking, of saying, it's hard to predict what that relationship would be like in the future when the folks who are here today are not, and making sure that we are able to protect our ratepayers from what may become more punitive actions. In a practical matter, and again, this goes back to our processes and trying to make sure that they are efficient as possible, we want to be able to respond to those dangerous poles, those true imminent safety risks. And again, the ones that you've raised for us, we have actually pulled one as recent as Friday to alleviate those concerns. When it comes to day-to-day operations, we want to be pragmatic in making sure that we're efficient with where we're running trucks, pulling multiple poles at a time. And so to the extent that we see a future where that could potentially become less efficient, that just creates costs for ratepayers. So I'll also state the specific...
Can I just say, to your first point, you're essentially saying we have a good relationship with our engineering and public works department and our codes people and our inspectors. And they do a good job, and they're smart people, and they're professional and capable. But we're worried that if somebody in there is not professional and capable and maybe punitive and has a bad attitude, then they might go, every day, I'm going to find you another pole and just get on you.
If that were to occur, given that we do not spell out that there's any opportunity for dialogue with the utility provider and the department about who determines what's been deemed safe based on industry best practices, or if there is no definition in the ordinance of what it means to make a sufficient remedy of that hazard, then that is a concern that we would have. Again, we would look at that as a long-term consideration, not necessarily one that we would be concerned with out of the gate.
Okay, I politely disagree that the language in our ordinance says that the 7 calendar days to remedy the department's safety concerns and verify the pole is stood safe by the department. And if it shall be a violation of the sector of pole owner to fail to comply with that requirement, and essentially if you ignore us, and then the department at its sole discretion may allow additional time if it's appropriate. It says right there, if you need more time and more dialogue, it's in the ordinance. I'm trying to figure out why this is an issue. If you do it already, why it's an issue, without any specific language changes that haven't been provided.
Again, we have offered specific language changes. That was our response to this ordinance.
Just that you all
Again, I
wanted to
think
be the ones deem it safe.
we would like to
not
have
them.
that be a conversation.
Yeah,
So-
and that was where we disagreed. I
Sure,
don't
yep.
think that you can be your own police. That's just not the role that we don't operate in our right of way and let people see if it's okay. We don't let people pave streets and say, yeah, it's good. That's just not what government does. So I understand the disagreement. Mr. Littleton, Mr. Hill, it helped me understand why, if you're great partners and you help take care of issues, you're against this ordinance as written.
Okay. Thank you. Alan Hill. My corporate address is 9733 Parkside Drive, Knoxville, 37922 for AT&T. So first of all, to the safety issue, when I joined the company, I found this the other day. It was a Bell South at the time, but this is the spirit of what we do from a safety standpoint. It's posted all over our work centers. It says that no job is so important and no service is so urgent that we cannot take time to perform our work safely. That's ingrained in our employees and the way we operate. So I think based on what Mr. Bagwell said and others, typically the power company, because they're usually called first because of power, potential danger in a situation, LCB and KUB take care of that pole, that situation usually immediately. And by the way, they have the capability of replacing our pole if it's damaged. If the electrical wires are damaged, then we reimburse them for that. That's how good we work together. So we think we've already working together well. The issue that we have, you asked Commissioner Schoonmaker about, is really the issue of who determines, like Ms. Gill said, who determines the safety condition of that pole. And then the potential, which has never been there before, of fines or penalties being levied against our company for not operating in this environment you've just put forth. So,
Stop right there.
Okay.
Can you tell me in this ordinance where it says you will have fines and penalties?
Well, sure. I mean, it's on down there. It says you have the potential of revoking permits.
That's not a fine or a penalty.
Okay, or stopping us from getting permits.
Okay, that's not a fine or a penalty. That's an issuance of a different permit.
Let me finish, if I may. Let me finish.
Right.
If we were to a point of not understanding with the department, and I think the department refers to, and this is the department that Mr. Snowden's director of, the Engineering Public Works, if we just have a disagreement and it goes past 14 days, and then you all make the decision, or Mr. Snowden's department, to withhold us from getting permits, then if we can't put a pole in the right-of-way in Knox County to finish the job that, say, some Knox County Chamber is recruited to this area, and they say, well, we can't do it, we've got a disagreement, then that's causing us business delay and just the fact of more time on this. And it also refers to potential civil penalties in here. So I know you took out the monetary situation here. At first, when this ordinance first came out in November of 23, we looked at this and it was, I believe the fines were supposed to be as much as $1,000 a day if you didn't react in a time frame. Then it went to $500 a day, then $500 a month, and now it came to this. And so
which is zero.
Zero, but if you read the repercussions of what you can do if you revoke our license or stop AT&T or any other attacher in here from getting pole attachment permits or put a new pole in or whatever the case may be, then that's a true cost of doing business for us in Knox County.
Do you operate in Farragut?
Absolutely.
Do you comply with their regulations to remove poles and to move lines before you are issued a new permit?
I don't know. I would have to find out if we do anything different in the town of Farragut where we do have structure because it is more TDS than us. We do have some overlap, but there's not. It just depends on the town of Farragut, the way our franchise is. I do not know the answer to that question.
I was told by the Farragut mayor that you, TDS, and every other utility and telecom comply with their issuing of permits to take away. So if you can do it in Farragut, and LCUB can do it in Farragut, why can't they do it in Knox County?
I'm not answering that question. I don't have the data there. Okay. But the other point I wanted to make, or 2 or 3 points, is first of all, in the definition, if you look in section, let's see the definition for, on page 2 of the ordinance, the definition for damaged in utility poles. It looks to me there that Knox County is not the one that determines if a damaged pole or dangerous pole is dangerous. It's the right-of-way owner, if I read that correctly.
That the right-of-way owner is the public, And the right-of-way owner is, the manager of the right-of-way is Engineering and Public
Well,
Works.
as I understand it, and I might address this to Mike Moyers, that the Knox County holds right-of-way in trust for the people of Knox County, and that the property owner, whether it be business or residential, is the one that owns the property. Henceforth, the pole you mentioned there, if it's been there for 7 years, the person that owns the property in the right-of-way that you hold in public trust should be the one that calls any utility provider that's on the pole or it owns it. And most of the time, those poles have a marking, whether it's AT&T, Bell South Pole, KUB, or they can make 2 phone calls and find out. To me, that's what I understand of how right-of-way law is. I'm not an attorney, so I defer to you and my legal counsel on that. But first of all, we got to start with the basics. So if you start with the definition that's in the ordinance, how do we define that?
I'm sorry, I was thinking about how we own the land. What was the definition that you're asking about?
In the, on page 2 of the ordinance, the definition section where it says damaged and dangerous pole, if you read that definition, that's one definition that defines the poles we're talking about.
Yes.
And how does that read? I'm pulling it up. I got to put in my
It says
password.
any utility pole that is structurally compromised as confirmed or verified by the owner of the right-of-way due to an event, example, weather, a traffic incident, et cetera, and poses a potential threat to public safety.
All right, so I see where the question is. I discovered from a court case having to do with annexation many, many years ago that unless we acquire right-of-way in fee, which most of the time we do not, it is considered to be an easement, just like a utility easement.
Right.
And so while it is not ownership in fee, we still control the use and the land. So if the landowner were to put something in our right-of-way, we would have the right to tell them that they had to get it out of the right-of-way, because it is an easement, but it gives us basically complete control over that easement, just as if you had a utility easement and I decided to put a shed on it. The company holding the easement could come tell me to get my shed off of it. So, yeah, it's not ownership in fee, but for the purposes of this ordinance, and we could clear that up pretty easily, but for the purpose of this ordinance, I think owner means the holder of that easement, the owner of the right-of-way.
Which would be Knox County.
I'm sorry?
Which would be Knox County then?
It would be, Knox County would be managing the easement, have the ownership, I think, as this is intended. That may be some language we could clear up if there's a second reading, but I think what's clearly meant is Knox County, because property owners don't have the right, while we hold the right-of-way, to interfere with our use of the right-of-way.
Okay. Well, not to get too far into the weeds there again, but I question that, just the fact of what role does a homeowner or a business owner have to, determining these problems too. And then, so that piece, and then the other item was, it's already been brought up, but the determiners of pole integrity, I think Aaron Gill mentioned that they had asked to be included in the determination of a pole, whether it has structural integrity or not.
I think the disagreement was was the pole owner going to self-police, or was the owner or the manager of the right-of-way going to be the determiner?
And we will suggest this in our next iteration if this does pass tonight, if it goes to second reading. And Commissioner Daly, thank you for giving us the offer to make those comments. Appreciate that. But in I think what she was really asking for is to be a part of a team, not to self-police necessarily, but along with the county, that the pole owner should self-determine with that committee, if you will, what's dangerous or not to be just told. So, because the question I want to pose to the commission and then also, I guess, to Director Snowden is, does Knox County want to take the sole responsibility of being that one that determines whether it's safe or not. Is that going to require extra contract personnel on your behalf or county's behalf to go and do the calculations on the poles that we typically have in-house? And we do similar things to what KUB and LCB do as well. We look at our pole integrity on a regular basis too. So I guess I pose the question, do you want to do that? But the real issue we have are the penalties here and levying something potentially on the pole owners and the pole attaching community, other utility providers that's never been there before. And we just think it's not necessary. We think a good starting place is the resolution. And so I think that's all that I needed to say. I do want to thank you, though, Commissioner Jay, for taking out the section 2B there for the disclosure
And
of contact.
as I said from day one, I'm open to any particular language or objection. And so thank you, Mr. Hill. I do want to ask Mr. Littleton a question.
And I will say that we've sent a lot of red line copies and different things to to Director Snowden. So I believe that Aaron Gill and others that have done that, if they haven't made it all the way to your desk, I'm sorry.
We've reviewed them all. The law department, Mr. Snowden, our team has reviewed every suggestion.
I think someone along the way made the comment that not many other folks have put forth items here. And from November 6th, from our first meeting in 2023, I believe it was, there's been several emails that we've sent recommendations to, and I think our counterparts here can speak to the same. So thank you for your time.
Mr. Littleton, I have the same question for you. What specifically to this ordinance that's before you regarding public safety? And I do agree you are a good partner, and I do agree that we've had with Commissioner Oster, we've had storms, we've had responses. You guys have come to the call, and at the same time, I've been able to show example after example, including the one on the screen of poles that you own. So what about this particular safety ordinance? If you are the great partner we all think you are, do you object to if there was an issue of imminent safety, public safety?
Well, of course, LCUB always wants to err on the side of safety. And Commissioner Jay, I don't want this to turn to a negative comment, because I think your work is good. I do believe that we are in the position to be the best determinant of what is safe and what is not in the field, just like we do with high voltage electricity.
Would you consider this pole safe?
I don't think those are our poles. That's our territory. And to be honest with you, I think that's another provider's poles, which in lies the issue. These are double poles with an attachment on it. And if it has an attachment on it, we can't move it. So what do you want me to do? I mean, you're blaming the person who has no control. And I guess that's my concern through this ordinance. We get caught in this circle of loop where utility, you're a bad player, and I have to come back and say, my hands are tied.
Well, but you do have agreement with the attachers, and in that agreement, you have ways to enforce your partnership with them and their attachments, correct?
Well, it's all done by contract, and a partner with such as AT&T, who has their own poles out there and their responsibilities, they understand this issue. There's other attachers in the arena that I don't want to say non-compliant.
Just help me understand. If you had a pole that was leaning over the road that was broken, and it had TDS Telecom on it and Comcast and AT&T, and they didn't respond. If you guys went out and said, "Oh my gosh, this thing's going to snap," like Mr. Snowden mentioned in a real life example, and they didn't respond, what would you do?
Well, we would try to take as much action as we possibly can. We've been making a lot of phone calls. I assure you for that. And your example for the Harvey Road pole was the best example, I think, of the night. It fell, and that's sad. It shouldn't have fallen. But we were aware of it, and we had plans to remove the pole on a shoulder month where we didn't have to take out electricity. Unbeknownst to us, someone attached to that pole without guy wires and it brought the pole down. That was not LCUB's fault. We knew it and we were aware of it and we're going to rectify it. Someone attached.
Okay.
And
I'm sure every circumstance is
They do.
completely different. I mean, it's got to be. But in this ordinance, it just clearly says if the manager of the right-of-way sees something that is dangerous, we reach out and we say, we got to take care of this. And we give a full week to get everybody to get on board. And then we can give a whole nother week. And then we can give it an infinite amount of time. Why would working together to fix a public safety issue be an issue?
I don't on the premise disagree with you, but I think that, I don't want to speak for Mr. Snowden. I think we need to be the determinant of what, if that pole is safe or not. And from my utility, I think we can demonstrate that we've done that. Yes, are there examples? Yes, do things happen? Absolutely, they do. And they shouldn't, but they do happen. One thing I could say, again, I just want you to catch a glimpse of this, and the commission can grab a little glimpse of this. This is very cyclical, and when you get in these arguments, it really opens Pandora's box. It just churns because the pole owner versus the attacher, who needs to move, who needs to do their job, some of these attachments can be up to 7 or 8 attachments per pole, and it gets very, very, very complex. There has to be engineering done. There has to be several things that go into the hopper. And I agree, you're placing time in that ordinance, but it's a very complex issue, and
I understand that. That's why we wrote it this way. It's very vague. It just says, let's make it safe. It doesn't say even remove the pole. It just says, work with us to figure out a way to make it more safe.
Yes.
Then it won't hurt somebody. That's why it's written this way.
I think you and I disagree just on one point, and one point only is let us be that determinant.
Okay, so that's the sticking point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm not going to take any more time. If there is very specific language related to that, I'm open to hearing it. I do hope you all will pass it on first reading so we can keep working on it and in a public way in our public forum online, hear any additional suggestions and then work on public safety together. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the extraordinary amount of time, but I know that you understand the issue and the importance.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could ask Mr. Bagwell or Mr. Snowden, you may be able to answer a question. How many unsafe poles are there in District 7?
That's a good question. We work under notice. Lots of times, folks have to report to us, or we have to become aware of those locations. In my experience right now, I'm not aware of any unsafe poles in District 7 that I've been made aware of, I guess would be the best way to put that.
And would KUB be the one who would be over those poles?
They would in the Halls community in Powell. LCUB kind of comes to about Cedar Bluff, so everything east of that would be KUB, or it could be, I think TDS has some plants in that facility, in that area, so there could be some communication poles as well, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a quick comment. I wanted to thank everyone, Commissioner Jay and all of our utility providers and telecom providers for coming to the table and discussing this very important issue. I just wanted to make a comment regarding public safety. Having served on the board for one of our emergency response agencies, also being married to a first responder, I understand the devastating impact of a vehicle versus a pole, or a vehicle versus any object in the right-of-way. And for years, I've heard from first responders that until all utilities are run underground, sadly, we will never be able to fully address that concern. So I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that any object in the right-of-way is devastating in a vehicular versus right-of-way incident. And that's really what I wanted to just make sure we understood that.
Thank you. Commissioner Durrett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since this is a separate item, I would like to recuse myself on this one as well due to my current employment.
Thank you. Duly noted. Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Snowden?
Yes, sir.
You're a member of the Tennessee County Highway Officials Association, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And in Tennessee, there's 15 counties with more than 100,000 population. Are you aware of any of your colleagues that have a utility type position that we have in Knox County that would be then charged with determining whether a telephone pole is safe or not? And is there any kind of training or anything like that available to county road supervisors as far as determining what a safe telephone pole is?
Yeah, I am not aware of any county that is in our region. The region 1 is like 24 counties, so we meet and talk quarterly. I'm not aware of any that have a similar ordinance as this or a position in that vein. Obviously, the gentleman I have that does my utility work that you mentioned is a great guy. He's got a tremendous amount of utility experience. Is he an expert on these things? No. So I mean, I think it would be something that that level of expertise is just it's something that's hard to come by.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm gathering from the conversation that the issue really does come down to who's going to determine if a pole is safe or not. Your wording, imminent safety issue, is in itself rather widely, could be widely interpreted. Whereas one person might think because it's a double pole it is, and another person, might think because wires are hanging. I mean, it's not as maybe quite as cut and dry as it sounds. The reason I am puzzled about this is because I feel like we've gone from the double pole thing to is it an imminent safety issue? Those really, in my world, in my view, personally, are two separate things.
Yeah,
They're two
that's why
separate items.
There's an ordinance and a resolution. They're two separate.
All right. In this ordinance that we're talking about, I have KUB and LCUB both in my district. I rarely have to call upon them, but when I do, I will say that response has been immediate. I'm hearing Mr. Snowden say that response has been very cooperative, very immediate. And then I'm also hearing that sometimes the issue is not on these larger utilities that are represented tonight, but that it lies with the down the pole, so to speak, issues with telecom providers, whoever all those might be. We've got a mess of them. I will tell you this, and it just has occurred to me because this came to my attention very early after I took office, this 2517 Byington Beaver Ridge that you show, nobody will claim that pole. It does not have LCUB or KUB electricity attached to it. Nobody will claim that pole, so nobody's going to get up there and take it down. That's just where I found myself on that particular item. What we do about that, I can't tell you. But that is the particular item, the issue on that pole. I'm feeling like we're trying to take something that is not really a safety issue and make it into something that is. We're trying to turn something that really seems to work pretty well if I've heard several say the utilities respond well to us. I've heard Mr. Snowden say the utilities respond well to him. If there's something that we judge or we think looks dangerous, and again, I'm not an expert in that, but I do feel comfortable in the response. So that makes me question. And also another thing is the fact that, again, many times the problem is down the pole, so to speak, which is totally out of the hands of these utility people. I'm just really questioning the wisdom of the need of this ordinance when I'm not sure that the real safety issue has been presented. That's just my comment on this.
And I would just respond respectfully, Madam Chair. If that was the issue, then I wouldn't be able to show you in my presentation last week, district after district after district with poles that are broken, snapped, laying in the right of way, hanging over the edge, and continued to be neglected. If they were such great partners and they were so on public safety, I would have zero examples to show you of things that I think are unsafe and have a potential like this one to cause harm. So respectfully, if it was so good, then we wouldn't have this issue at all.
And I very much appreciate that. I'm wondering if those specific areas have been reported to those utility providers.
Some have.
Would you know how many?
We just started sending some reports, and we've been at the table for a few months. So some have, and some continue to be as I explore them or as constituents send them to me. And there's certainly plenty of examples in the presentation I gave last week. I hope everybody took those to light and looked and see if they were their polls or not.
Thank you. Commissioner Daly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Commissioner Jay for bringing this to light. It's got a conversation started with KUB, LUCB, AT&T, Comcast, and everyone, which was needed to be started. The sticking point here is who is going to determine what is a dangerous pole. And I think Ms. Gill says she's willing to work with it. I believe, where'd they go? Oh, back there. I think all three of you are willing to work to see who, as a committee, what is a dangerous pole. And I think that could be worked out. And I think that if you do that, I don't think you would have any problem with this. The sticking point is who is going to determine that. I'm asking you as commissioners to vote yes tonight to move it on, give these utilities and service providers a chance to come back and say, this is what I would like to do. It would like to be a committee to do that, not just Mr. Snowden and his department, but a committee. And I think that the public deserves that, to keep this conversation going for one more month. And I hope I'll be voting yes to move it on, to hear back from KUB, LUCB, TDS, all of them. So I will be voting yes, and I hope everyone else, so we can move it along.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, I will, thank you. I will call for the question, and it is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Oster? No. Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Commissioner Schoonmaker?
No.
Commissioner Hill?
No.
Commissioner Lee?
No.
Commissioner Beeler?
Pass.
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jay?
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier?
Pass.
Commissioner Lundy,
No.
Commissioner Dirt? You abstain?
She does. Would the passes like to change their vote? I'm seeing a negative. Three ayes, 4 noes, 3 passes. There's 3 ayes, 5 noes, and 3 passes, so the resolution fails. I'm sorry. 5, 3, 2, and 1 recusal. My apologies. So this motion fails. Next item, please.
There are no ordinances on second reading, so our next item is public forum for open topics.
Thank you. Is Mr. Briggs Sampson in the audience? He is our only speaker for public forum. All right. He did sign up on a zoning matter, which I don't believe is on the agenda, Mr. Schoonmaker. The 1D? Thank you. All right. We have no public forum. Other business. I'd just like to make the announcement because I believe our junior commissioners will be leaving us about tomorrow night at 6:30 at Calhoun's. I believe that Commissioner Jay has taken the lead on this and has a very nice banquet and presentations planned. So we hope you all will be there. We hope you can bring some family members with you also. Are there any other announcements, anything that needs to be discussed? All right, this meeting is adjourned.